When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, I'm going to talk about when people are scared of retirement and actually how, in fact, this could be a really positive time in your life. And I will go into that as soon as I tell you to subscribe. My most recent subscriber episode was when you want to change your partner back to who they used to be. That's a really, really important one for a lot of people. Important things to think about in that episode because so many people struggle with their partner no longer being who they were or who they thought they were. Okay, so I work with a lot of people at midlife, obviously, and because I'm at midlife and that's who listens to me and that's who reads my writing and that's who comes in. I have still a range probably from 30s to 70s, but the majority are about my age, and I'm 45, as you know. So a lot of times people are very worried about what they will do in retirement because this is kind of different based on education level and socioeconomic class because obviously if you have like this physical job, a job where your body is wearing out, but you're still like, you work at a factory, you work, like for example, my grandmother, she was sewing in a factory, right? And so she wasn't like scared of retirement, you know, like that did not have to, like she would have wanted to stop working and worked for money. Like that's why she worked, very obviously. But when people have a lot of education and a lot of their self-concept based into their job, like for example, I just read an article the other day about how hard it is for doctors when they retire. At first, it's very hard because they lose their self-concept. So much of their identity is based on being a physician. And so then when they retire, they often underestimate what the mental impact will be and the emotional impact of not being a practicing physician anymore. All of the respect that you get, all of the interactions with colleagues, all the intellectual stimulation, figuring things out, etc., right? So when your job is based more on your identity and your self-concept and you're more, you feel more self-actualized by your job, that's great while you're working, right? Like then you feel more fulfilled by the work that you do than, for example, working in a factory. However, when you retire, which of course you don't have to retire necessarily, but many people do. You know, you have chronic pain issues, you have certain health issues, your mind isn't as sharp as it used to be, or maybe your partner really wants you to retire because they want you around more and you've had this onerous schedule forever and you've committed to that, or maybe you have childcare, you know, obligations that you want to do, like helping with grandchildren or what have you. So either way, if you are not in a position where you could still work a little bit, which is the ideal for many people, is then they practice only once a week. You know, they go into the office only once a week, or if, especially this is good if you own your own business, you could do stuff like that. But many people can't. So it's kind of just a dichotomous decision and then they retire. And that can be really, really traumatic. That adjustment period can be very difficult. You lose your colleagues that you saw every day, you lose the intellectual stimulation, and you lose a lot of the identity and the respect of people respecting you and your job, obviously. You know, you've been working for a long time, you may be considered an expert in some way, people defer to you, and then that kind of just stops one day. And so this can be a traumatic transition. However, with preparation and with a different frame, often after this period of stress, it can turn into something super, super positive. And so how? Well, first of all, there's a lot of parts of you that were not getting any traction, you know, that were not getting any play when you were working all the time. So for example, the physician, he may also be an athlete or an ex-athlete, somebody who wants to get back into tennis or golf or what have you. Or he may be somebody who likes to travel and could never travel before. Or he could be somebody who likes to write or likes to do music or create in some kind of way or build things. If you are a person, and I talked about this as a producer versus a consumer in a different podcast, if you're a consumer, retirement's a lot easier. But if you're a producer, then you're two things, right? So you like to produce, that is kind of your reason for living. That's something that gives you joy. That's something that you like to do even in your hobbies. Also, it's more likely that your job represented who you were, because producers produce, they create, and jobs where you create are more usually in line with your self-concept and have a deeper connection to your identity. So then it's like you like to produce and you're stopping, and also your job, which you're stopping, was more important to your sense of self. So then you get a double whammy as if you're this producer type. If you're a consumer and you like mostly to, read and watch TV and go to concerts and just consume entertainment, then you're thrilled to be retired a lot of the time because you have so much more time to do those things. But when you're producing, you have to figure out what else you're going to produce. You may produce a fucking daycare, pretty much. I saw this guy, I was walking the other day in the park, and he was obviously on, I would imagine, what was some form of a work call, although that just may be how he talked. He was a guy in his 60s. He's pushing a baby in a stroller. It was so cute, right? And so that guy, whatever he's still doing, maybe he's managing some business still. Maybe I don't know what he's doing, but he's walking in the middle of the morning. So probably looked the age to be retired, but he was taking care of his grandchild. And who knows about this individual guy, but I know plenty of people that have that as a regular thing that they do. Is basically grandma or grandpa daycare. And so then they are producing an experience, right, for this grandchild. And they usually are out and moving and going to the playground and going to these activities and what have you, right? You may be producing, as I said, music or art or writing again. So many people that have high impact and high hours jobs, they have a creative side, but they haven't had any space to really think about that for so many years or even decades. So people get back to writing, they get back to playing music, they get back to painting or whatever, or building. There's so many guys that do these home projects that are amazing, and in the yard and in the home, and they finally have time to figure out a project and really see it through because they're there every day instead of just being a weekend home improvement warrior. And I'm talking about people who like to do these projects, obviously not people who hate to do these projects, because a lot of the world really takes, the approach that, if you can outsource it, then you should. But if you love doing these things, then you don't want to outsource it. And you feel bad about all the years when you had to, for example, hire somebody to build you a shed because you didn't have time to build a shed because you were working every day, but you really are the kind of guy who would like to build a shed, or the kind of woman who would like to build a shed, or whatever. So there's that also. Then there are the many possibilities to connect to people who you haven't seen for years. We're a very mobile society now. People in retirement travel constantly. Travel is just so much more of a thing than it ever was when many of us in midlife remember our own grandparents. Maybe they went back and forth from Florida, but that, unless you were very wealthy, that was pretty much it. But people nowadays travel. They see friends that they had when they were a child. They see friends from high school years. They see friends from college. They go to their reunions. They go on special sightseeing tours and trips. The travel industry is just tremendous. And there are so many things in the world to see. That is another huge life-affirming option for retirement, is to make it basically around these trips and places that you always wanted to see in your life, and to reconnect with these people that are important to you that you didn't see for the many years that you were working all the time because you really couldn't. And now there's also the intellectual side. There are people who take these lifelong learning classes. at the college and whatever the nearby college is, or online, and that's really meaningful to them. They could take classes in history or art or English or whatever they miss, or something totally new that they always wanted to learn. There's plenty of people who improve on their language skills. Duolingo, but also in-person classes. The great thing is that when you no longer have to be burdened by a schedule, then you could do things at any time. If they're offering a Spanish class at the YMCA at 10:30 in the morning on Fridays, guess who can go now? You can. So that's like super awesome as well. The best and most adaptive way to think about retirement is that you are going to explore all those other parts of yourself that you had as a child or as a young person or in college, but really during these years where you were really shoving all as much work as you could into your weeks and then as quick as you could, so then you could be with your family and juggling all of these things, that part is over now. So now you have the possibility to reconnect with parts of yourself that you haven't seen for a while. And this is how a lot of women feel after menopause, by the way, is the reconnection to the child self and the play self and the old hobbies that you used to like and those sorts of things, because you don't feel that push for the caretaking as much because you're past that time. And then when men retire, they often can, after that first dip in satisfaction that many have that I discussed, they reconnect with their old self as well and their old hobbies and parts of their identity that got subsumed by the work identity. So this would be a great discussion to have with your partner if you have one, and to talk about your expectations and thoughts and hopes and goals for the retirement stage. And it's very interesting. There's couples goals, like travel is often something you do as a couple, but there's also individual goals and there's also larger family goals, right? So for example, we want to be able to spend more time with our grandkids. That would be maybe a family goal. We want to travel to Europe. That's a couple goal. I want to take an art class. It's an individual goal. So there's many different layers to this. And if you look at it as an exciting transition that allows you, and like life is like, it's like a bell curve. And so, in many ways, but the main part of it is usually taken up with a lot of stressful schedule management, and it can be very fulfilling, obviously, to have a million things on your plate and juggling them. It's also very stressful, and you don't get to pick and choose what you do. You're kind of on autopilot for a lot of that main part of your life. When you retire, you have much more time. So you get to be intentional with what you choose to do and which aspects of your identity you choose to focus on. And it could be different ones at different stages. But the key and the protective buffering idea here is not to look at it as the end, but as the beginning of a different transition time, which it really is, especially if you're lucky enough to be somewhat physically healthy. You can really make the most of this with a perspective of reconnecting with these other parts of yourself, which many people don't even know what they are, so they don't even almost remember that they used to like art when they were young, because they haven't done it for so long. And then they take a class and they're like, wow, this is like riding a bike. I'm doing my drawing class and I love it. My pottery class or painting or whatever, woodworking, whatever the case may be. So it is really interesting. It's a great deeper discussion topic for you and your partner. It's a great discussion. It's a great journaling prompt. What do I want my retirement to look like? These are the sorts of thoughts that, when a new stage is coming up, it's like, don't be scared to think about it, because then it's going to hit you super hard. If you think about it and you grapple with your ambivalence and, I'm going to miss my professional career, and what else could I focus on? The more that you talk about these things openly, even just to yourself, then the easier your transition is into different stages, whether it's parenthood or whether it's having, whether it's retirement or whether it's a job transition or anything else. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll talk to y'all soon.